Imagine this, the year's 1980 and you're on a boat alongside 125,000 other people. All are moving to America in hopes of chasing the American dream. 1 in 5 people around you have criminal records, one of them being Tony Montana.
Antonio Montana. And you? What you call yourself?
An ambitious and ruthless man who entered America alone and without a single penny in his pocket.
I didn't come to the United States to break my back, mijo.
Hey, he's coming, okay?
Me, I want what's coming to me.
Oh, well, what's coming to you?
The world should go.
This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
His ruthless and egotistical traits lead him to a series of events where he would eventually become the kingpin of the Montana cartel, but also the same very traits that lead to his downfall. This is how Tony Montana lived long enough to become his own villain. Before we dive into Tony Montana, I think it's important to get some context of his early days. Tony grew in a poor Havana neighborhood of Spanish immigrants. When he was just 13, he obtained his iconic scar after committing murder for the first time. After serving time in prison, Tony joined the Cuban army, which shortly comes to an end as he went AWOL and boarded a cargo ship from Cuba to France, where he could lay low and start fresh there. But the plan would immediately fall apart when he was arrested for shoplifting and deported back to Cuba in the late 70s. In 1977, former US President Jimmy Carter sought to improve relations with Cuba, so he lifted all restrictions on travel between Cuba and America. This now leads to the beginning of Scarface, where Tony alongside 125,000 Cuban immigrants are on a boat to America. He is soon questioned by US officials, where Tony would lie about his background, claiming his family was killed or left back in Cuba and that his dad was an American in hopes of getting a green card. However, after the US officials saw his gang-related tattoo, he was denied a green card. Tony and a close friend of his, Manny Rivera, are sent to what was called Freedom Town, a refugee camp where Cuban immigrants without green cards are held. After 1 month there, Manny would inform Tony of a bounty on a communist named Emilio Rebenga, and the reward was green cards to anyone that participated.
We're gonna be out of this place in 30 days. Not only that, but we got a green card and a job in Miami, man. Now are we made or are we made, man?
Tony, hungry for freedom, takes advantage of the riots and kills Emilio with the help of Manny. They both get their green cards and are released, where they would both get jobs as cooks for a small food stand. But deep down, Tony's unsatisfied.
I didn't come to the United States to break my back, mijo.
Hey, he's coming, okay? What do you want from me?
Coño, fuck.
After some time passes, Tony and Manny are approached by Omar Suarez, Frank's right-hand man. Frank Lopez was the man who had set the hit on Emilio earlier and granted Tony and Manny their green cards. He was a drug lord of Miami, who later becomes an important character to Tony. But going back, Omar Suarez offered Tony and Manny a small-time job.
I got something for you.
Yeah? What do we gotta do?
Get on a boat. Marijuana, 25 tons. You get 500 each.
500. Who do you think we are, baggage handlers?
Bear in mind, $500 in 1980s was a lot of money, especially compared to their jobs where they would likely earn around minimum wage. So Manny was content and willing to do the job. However, Tony wasn't, so he attempts to negotiate the pay to $1,000 each, as he understands the risk and value of the job.
The going rate on a boat is $1,000 a night, man. You know that.
However, Emilio and Tony can't come to an agreement. But by negotiating, Omar offers Tony another job, higher risk, higher pay, where they'll deal cocaine for $5,000, in which Tony accepts. Now of course, this may be greedy, but an important aspect to success in general is knowing when and how to negotiate deals. As if he hadn't negotiated, then he wouldn't have known about the cocaine deal, which some might say could be the crucial turning point, as Tony would get to meet Frank Lopez himself. But before we get onto that, he undergoes the deal, however the deal quickly turns south. After escaping death, he escapes the scene with the money and drugs, where he demands to personally hand over the product directly to Frank Lopez.
I'm taking it to Lopez myself. Yeah. Now you, me.
But more importantly, to get closer to Frank Lopez. Tony understands he needs a mentor to gain insight on the drug game and that it would be the fastest way to get rich. Rather than start from the bottom, climbing your way up the cartel, he funnels through the cartel. Despite Frank Lopez teaching Tony the ways of being a boss, Tony saw many flaws in his empire, one of them being Frank being too soft. They would come to disagreements due to Tony being too dominant and disrespectful of the way Frank ran his empire, ultimately leading to Frank setting a hit on Tony. He survives and finds Frank where he would order his partner to shoot him.
Hey, okay, you. Oh, Christ, thank you. Get off. Thank you. Manolo, shoot that piece of chip. No.
He takes over Frank's empire and becomes a major player in the drug game, where he would establish connections with the Colombian drug cartels and essentially takes over what Frank had left. We see Tony flooded with millions of dollars throughout the movie, and it's mentioned he would deal with Sosa, buying $18 million worth of product, where he would turn over $75 million for every 2,000 kilograms of cocaine he would distribute, making him around $10 to $15 million in profits per month. He had all the money he had dreamt of, the power, the wife, the cars, the mansions, he had it all. And upon doing research, it's estimated that he would have a net worth of around $900 million. However, I believe this is not accurate, as Tony was boss from 1980 to 1983, which is 36 months. With a monthly income of around $10 to $15 million, he would have around $360 to $540 million. Despite however much money Tony accumulated, it wouldn't have lasted very long, as his ego, greed and arrogance that got him there was also the reason for his downfall, and allowed too many flaws within the business, just like Frank. It begins when he was arrested and caught laundering $1.3 million. He doesn't take the arrest seriously, assuming he would get out the next morning. However, after meeting with his lawyer, he is told that he would have to do 5 years in jail, 3 if he is well behaved. Striking his ego and arrogance, he doesn't want to admit the fact that he would have to go to jail. Going to jail for 3 years is of course bad, but for the amount of crimes Tony had committed, it would be a soft punishment. But due to Tony's ego, he would go and meet Sosa, where they negotiate a deal. He would have to assassinate a man exposing Sosa's empire. In return, Tony would walk a free man. And at this point, Tony had killed numerous men, so this was just a normal thing for him. However, what he hadn't known was Sosa's men were planning on killing the man's entire family, in which Tony could not bring himself a part of.
Obedece. Matamos este tipo solo, sin mujer y sin hijo.
So he kills Sosa's man and aborts the mission. This then leads to Sosa warring with Tony, where he would eventually get Tony shot and killed. But more importantly, I want to focus on the traits of Tony and his downfall. After accumulating wealth and power, he distanced himself from close ones due to his ego and arrogance.
You, mate! Who put this thing together? Me! That's who!
Also the same arrogance that thought he was unstoppable and that nobody could come close to him, which was one of the reasons for his downfall. Not to mention he begins to use his own supply, making him make irrational decisions. And if he wasn't killed by Sosa, it was clear to say that the crown at the top wasn't going to last very long the way Tony was heading. Despite killing many men, he couldn't bring himself to killing an innocent daughter or mother, which of course doesn't justify his past actions, but does show some sense of morality and sympathy for the innocent. Tony Montana had a code and morals that he stuck by, which was his formula for success, but also the very same formula for his downfall.